Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network. And joining me to preview the Texans-Cowboys game is our Bleav colleague, ex-Cowboys wide receiver, Jesse Holley, host of the Bleav in Cowboys podcast. It's great to meet you, Jesse, but I wish this was more of a marquee, fun matchup, the one that we were expecting when the schedule came out, since we only get the Texans-Cowboys every 4 years.
No, I'm right there with you, man. Absolutely. The storylines had written themselves, right? Battle of Highway 45. You would have had the Diggs brothers, right? Stephon versus Trayvon. I mean, the rights for Texas and all that kind of stuff. I trust me, I feel the same way you feel. And this was like one of those things that when the schedule came out, I was like, man, this thing writes itself. I don't have to do any work for this. The storylines are there. The intrigue is there. The bragging rights are there. It's Dallas. It's Houston. Everything was right set for absolute fun-filled drama. And then for the most part, the Cowboys, I will say, we haven't done our part in keeping this thing interesting.
Well, we're not doing much better. Just falling on our face every time we go on national television, and there's some issues, but we're going to get to some of the storylines. I want to remind everyone, though, today's show brought to you by MyBookie. Get in on the fun during the heart of the NFL season, early NBA action as well. And maybe you're like me. You notice the Texans never cover. There's pretty big spread for the Texans this week, so maybe you can take advantage of it, get a little cash back while you do it. The holidays around the corner, make a little extra spending money. That's always nice. And hey, MyBookie doubles your first deposit up to $1,000. That's a 100% deposit bonus. Look for the promo code and link in the show description. Your code, Houston Sports Talk. We just shorten it to HST. That's easy to remember. HST is your code. But if you forget, just go check it out in the subscription. You can click and you're right there. And Jesse, the Cowboys are sticking with Cooper Rush, man. Was the 45 yards passing as bad as it sounds? And does Trey Lance deserve a shot?
Yes, it was as bad as it sounded. It was as bad as it looked. But I feel like with Cooper Rush is that he's somewhere in between what we saw Sunday and what we saw 2 years ago. Now, is that good enough to beat the Texans? I don't believe so. But I don't believe he was that bad. But this is a part of the issue where, when you looked at the season, Trey Lance got all the preseason reps because they were trying to really figure out what they had in Trey Lance. And so Cooper Rush didn't get many of the reps. And as you know, Rob, when you get into the season, QB1 gets all the reps, right? Like, and the more veteran you are, the more you want those reps in practice, and you aren't trying to divvy those up against the second and third string. So, that those quarterbacks get more of their reps on the scout team, so on and so forth. So for Cooper Rush, this is the first time he really had a week's worth of action in practice and then actually getting in the game since God knows how long. So I'm sure the jitters were there, the nervousness was there. You don't have everything that you had before the last time that he had an opportunity to start for the Dallas Cowboys. So again, I don't believe he was 45 yards bad. So he's somewhere in between that. And hopefully we'll see that in the Monday night matchup. And then the Trey Lance thing, this is just my personal opinion with it. I've been out on Trey Lance for a long time because if Mike McCarthy is the coach that talks about being a quarterback whisperer and having an eye for quarterbacks, then you've seen all you need to see. You should be able to look at Trey Lance and on the day-to-day practices and the opportunity that he had in training camp. Remember, Trey Lance threw 5 interceptions in the last preseason game against the Chargers to guys, and I mean this in all respect, no disrespect to those guys, but he threw 5 interceptions to guys who are selling insurance right now, right? Those guys weren't the starters. There wasn't a scheme put in. And so I think we understand what Trey Lance is. I do think there will be a point in time where we'll get to Trey Lance being the starter for this football team because we live in a day and time where our owner loves a good storyline, loves a good tale. So, what better way than keep the intrigue going than my timeline is Trey Lance will probably get his chance to start on Thanksgiving because it gives that watchability for those portion of the fans who are Trey Lance believers or who want to see what Trey Lance has. But when we don't have QB1, you kind of lose all hope in what you're going to be able to do offensively.
Can you inject Trey Lance's arm strength into Cooper Rush? Is that possible? Is there a way to some sort of surgery there real quick?
Yeah, listen, they can go to the same doctor that Dak's going to this Wednesday to get his surgery. Hopefully he can take that arm strength and put it into the arm of Cooper Rush.
Big picture, is the franchise really stuck in neutral, though, with the Dak's contract? What did you think they should have done in that situation?
Man, in this day and time, if you don't have a franchise quarterback, then you don't have a football team. And I think with the Cowboys, there are two sides of the Dak Prescott story that we deal with in Dallas. You have a faction of the people who will say, he's our guy, he's good enough, he's a top 10 quarterback. You have the other half that says he's not a good guy, he's not a top 10 quarterback, and we shouldn't have given him the money. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But you look across this league, and if you want to have an opportunity to compete each and every year, you're going to need a quarterback. And having a top 10 quarterback is definitely something that you want. I mean, feel how you feel about Dak Prescott, and I know that the playoff success isn't there, but this guy was second in MVP votings last year. I mean, this isn't chopped liver that you're talking about. This guy can play football. I think one of the things that Jerry was very adamant when he said this in the offseason, he said, when I pay Dak Prescott, he's going to have to do more with less. That was his thought process. That was his thinking. That was his approach to the season. And he thought that Dak Prescott could and should do more with less because he had to pay him that money. But look around the league. You got to give these quarterbacks. Even Patrick Mahomes, as good as he is, he needs weapons. As good as Josh Allen is, he needs weapons. And Lamar Jackson, these quarterbacks, in order for them to be the best that they very can be, you got to put weapons around them, and you got to give them a chance each and every week to do so. I don't think the Cowboys truly did that this year, and you see the outcome of it right now.
Yeah, we know about needing weapons because Stroud's struggling without Nico the last few weeks. No question about that. Let me go back in the time machine a little bit. 14 years ago, you're playing for the Cowboys. Your first season, Wade Phillips was fired in the middle of the season, replaced by Jason Garrett. Can you explain a little bit, because you were right in the midst of all this, what it's like being part of the Circus Dallas Cowboys atmosphere?
You're drowning. And you're literally drowning, and you're trying to find a way because, players don't intentionally go out there and want to play bad and want to do bad, on these games. Everybody wants to go out there and win, but it just seems like you're drowning. You can't figure out a way to come out of it. What could go wrong does go wrong, whether that be injuries or play or execution. And then, I'll be honest with you, I was a part of those teams, and you did have a lot of guys who began to make business decisions because when you start looking at your coach and you're like, man, this guy's out of here after this year, there's not really much future, guys start thinking about themselves. They start thinking about, and the biggest thing about it was, I'll tell you, for those teams that I was playing with, guys didn't want to get hurt. So they would play games sometimes half-heartedly because they didn't want to get hurt, because they didn't want – a lot of guys were going into the offseason as free agents and wanted to be as healthy as they possibly could to get on the market. The other thing was guys didn't want to be around the facility anymore, because if you get hurt and now you're out for the year, you don't get to go to your beach house in Florida or in California. You got to stay around in Dallas and rehab and be with the team and do all those type of things. So, those are the things that was going on at that particular time. And there was some quick in that team that I was a part of, but it felt like you were drowning. No matter what you did, you couldn't come out of this quicksand. You couldn't find a breath. No one was throwing you a life jacket. And at every turn, the more that you move, the deeper that you sank into that quicksand, the more and more you drowned, and you just couldn't get out of it. And it eventually led to Wade Phillips being fired. Now, I do have some more other personal opinions about what was happening from the coaching aspect of that, because a lot of us felt like there was a little bit of sabotage between Wade Phillips and Jason Garrett, because we did get a brand new offensive playbook once Jason Garrett became the head coach. That's another story for another day, but it did feel like we were drowning.
When Wade left the Cowboys, he became the Texans DC, was the catalyst of the first playoff teams down here with the help of J.J. Watt. What are your memories of Coach Phillips? And I should mention my first memories as a football fan go back to the Love You Blue Oilers with Bum, his dad, and, of course, Wade as the D-line coach.
Coach Phillips he was a player's coach. And I know, people say that term sometimes. And what I loved about it was we didn't have a young locker room. We had a very, very veteran locker room. We had Tony Romo and Jason Witten and Marion Barber and Tashard Choice and Marcus Ware and Gerald Sensabaugh and Jason Hatcher and Brady James and Leonard Davis. And we had a veteran locker room at that particular time. And so, Wade really allowed us, Coach really allowed us to go out there and be men. Right? Like, he wasn't micromanaging. He allowed men to be men. He allowed us to hold each other accountable. The thing about Coach was, his thing was defense. So he spent a lot of his time on the defensive side of the ball trying to get those guys prepared. And honestly, and most guys will tell you, we failed him. We failed Coach Wade in those moments where he gave us the trust to be men and to do what we were supposed to do. And we failed him in that, and it ultimately cost him his job.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would term bum. He allowed his guys to be men, and he trusted them. And, that's something that you really had to love about those guys. And before we get to some of the key matchups on Monday night, I just want to remind the audience to join us for our live Texans Cowboys postgame show. We need your comments and questions. And, of course, for this show and all our content, get in the YouTube comments, click the like button to support us. And if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe and notifications on YouTube to get updates on the latest content as well. You want to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can listen to us while you're out and about. All right, Jesse, let's move to key matchups Monday. Is there a particular matchup or area that is your biggest concern for the Cowboys when you look at what the Texans are bringing?
It's the Cowboys' offensive line. One thing I watched so far on film, the Texans' defensive line is active all across the board. I know that they didn't have Will Anderson last week. I don't know if they'll play this week. I know it was questionable. You probably have more insight in that than I do. But, even watching Danielle Hunter and the rest of the guys, I won't even try to pronounce the other guy's name across the front. But everybody's super active. The linebacker active now. The defensive line is active. And it feels like that D'Amico Ryans and that defense and Coach Burks, they decided that, hey, we're stopping the run through hella high water. They feel like they have the corners on the outside and the guys that can cover guys on the outside, whether man or zone. And so they've committed to stopping the run. And for the Cowboys, the one weak area that we've had, one of the weak areas that we've had this year is our offensive line. Even our great right guard, Zach Martin, he struggled. I mean, Father Time has got him. He's dealing with a shoulder arm injury. Today it came out that our left guard, Tyler Smith, is dealing with a knee injury. It was wrapped up heavily. And, last week, our rookie left tackle, Guyton, didn't play. Austin Richards stepped in and played pretty well up there. But my biggest concern is, will the Cowboys be able to hold up and give Cooper Rush or give Rico Dowdle holes to run through and time to throw the football? Because that Houston defensive front is very active, man, and they get to it.
On the other side, what weakness do the Texans have do you think the Cowboys can exploit? And, for example, Kamari Lassiter's out with the concussion, so the number 2 cornerback, definitely a problem this week for the Texans side. Or can the Cowboys take advantage of the Texans' weak interior offensive line?
Getting Micah Parsons back definitely helps. But, Micah's a one-man show. He hasn't had the help that he needed in the interior right now. Last week, you saw a lot from Coach Zim. He used a lot of run blitzing and pass blitzing and getting DeMar Overshown to the quarterback. But if Bobby Slowick is worth his weight in anything and then looking to continue on this hot streak of him being hot head coaching candidates coming out after the season, then, he'll put together a scheme that will neutralize Micah, and they'll be able to run the ball with Joe Mixon. The Cowboys are just so bad all across the board right now. The best thing that I can hope for is that Micah and DeMar Overshown are able to create a little bit of havoc and maybe get C.J. Stroud to rush, to be sped up, maybe turn the ball over a little bit like he did a week ago against the Lions. But, the Cowboys are down bad right now on both sides of the ball.
Texans favored by 7.5. Not surprising with Cooper Rush starting, but Jesse, that's a lot of faith that they're giving the field goal kicking Texans offense that takes naps in the second half. If you could shut down the Texans in the first half, you might be able to just shut them down altogether.
But here's the funny thing, right? So you say that, and then you look at the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are the worst third quarter team in the National Football League right now. Even last week, I haven't done the numbers this week, but they were being outscored heading into the fourth quarter, 169-59. Like, that's how they've been outscored entering the fourth quarter in all their games this season. The Cowboys have been horrid in the third quarter. So, I guess it's what's the saying? The immovable force meets the unmovable object, whatever it is. The Texans fall asleep in the second half. The Cowboys are terrible in the third quarter. I just, right now, it's a lot of hoping for the Cowboys that you have to have a lot go right for the Cowboys and a whole lot go wrong for the Texans for us to be successful.
Yeah, they're both immovable. It's the immovable against the immovable, it looks like, with these two teams.
Yeah.
I can't let you go without you telling the story of how you ended up with the Cowboys. And if I've got it right, I'm going to lead it in a little bit. You spent time on the Bengals practice squad coming out of college, played in the CFL, and then you were a security guard and selling phones in North Carolina. Is that how it all started?
Yeah, man. I lost everything. I went completely broke. I hightailed it back to Durham, North Carolina, while I was living with a family friend. I was sleeping on her futon, and I started working as a third shift security guard in Durham, and then I would work from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And then I would train from 7:30 to 9:30, and then I would go to a T-Mobile cell phone store in Northgate Mall, and I would sell cell phones from 10:15-ish to 3 o'clock. That was my life until I got a call one day from Kevin Best, who was the he was the PR director at Carolina. I had been 2 years removed from school, and Kevin called me. He said, "Hey, listen, Jess, I wanted to give you a call because I gave these people your information from this show called he said from this reality TV show that they're trying to do. I didn't have much information about it, but they're going to call you." And so they did, and they were very vague about what they were actually doing. And I applied. This is how you know it was a long time ago, because I sent the fax in. There wasn't no scan and send in. I had to print it out and then send the fax back in to the company. And I was selected to be a part of I was selected to go to an audition in Orlando. I didn't have the money to go. I lied and said, yes, I'll be there. And, through the grace of God, things start to come together. I got a phone call the next morning from my godmother, who was just checking on me. And she asked me if I need to fly anywhere. And I said, actually, I do. She said, well, because she had a plane ticket that she had purchased to go back home to Alabama. But things had came up and she didn't go, and they were going to cancel her ticket if she didn't use it. So she switched it and put it in my name. I got a trip to Orlando. I went there. I did a great job at the audition. Then I was part of the 50 people who went to LA to another audition, and I won that, and I was one of the people that was selected. 12 people were selected, 6 wide receivers, 6 DBs. We did a 2-month-long contest right here in the DFW. We stayed in the Cotton Bowl, and I want to emphasize and be emphatic when I say we lived in the Cotton Bowl. A lot of times you see reality TV shows when the camera says cut, they go to this lavish house or this hotel suite. We lived in the locker rooms of the Cotton Bowl. One side was offense, one side was defense, and we competed every single day. We would film like 14 hours a day for 2 months, and eventually I won the show. I got an opportunity to go to training camp. I was the 80th man on the 80-man training camp roster, and this was when the old school training camp roster, where you did the cut downs after a certain while every single week. And I made it all the way through. I did my first year on the practice squad. I did 2 more years on the active roster and had a great time, man. And that's where the legend of Mr. Fourth and Long has come about. So it was a wild ride, and I'm forever thankful to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys and Michael Irvin, who had the novel concept to do this show, and it worked out. It worked out well for me.
And then you have a whole great story before that, because you're playing football at North Carolina. You walk on the basketball team. You win the national championship in 2005, the Raymond Felton, Rashad McCants, Sean May team. Do you got a favorite memory from that championship run?
Coming into that year, how it all played out, when they did the opening preseason, countdown, they kept saying Illinois was the best team in the country, and that North Carolina was the most talented. And boy, did that grind Coach Williams' gear. And that was the thing, that literally was his driving force all year long. Yes, we are talented. We're the University of North Carolina. We will always be talented, but damn it, we're the best team. And just the way that it played out that whole year, we ended up playing Illinois in the championship, because we were going 1-2 all year long in the rankings, and we ended up playing Illinois in the championship. And the tournament run that we had, we narrowly escaped the jaws of Villanova and Jay Wright, who were so far ahead of their time. Right, he was playing 4 guards and a 6'8" big man back in 2005, where that's what the game is today. Right, the NBA game now is basically 4 guards and a big man, or the big man is more athletic than anything. And boy, we had a hard time with that one. But man, every stage that we had in that year was so much fun. We just had our 20-year reunion in October. We did it in October because a lot of guys are coaching in college and in the pros. And if we did it in the spring, guys would have been all over the place. So we did our 20-year reunion in October, and it was great to be around all of those guys, man. What a blessed life I have lived so far.
Yeah, what a story. I mean, your life's kind of like been a movie so far. And for our audience wanting to follow you, it's at Mr. Fourth and Long, as you mentioned, Mr. Fourth and Long on X. And also tell us about Bleav and Cowboys and anything else that you got going on right now.
Man, as the young kids say, I'm outside. I'm everywhere, man. I'm outside. You can check me out on Bleav in Cowboys 2 times a week on Apple and Spotify and on YouTube. I'm also on All City DLL's Cowboys 5 days a week, every 11 a.m. Central Time. You can find that on YouTube as well. I do a weekly show on DallasCowboys.com called Hanging with the Boys with 3-time Super Bowl champion Nate Newton. And I have my own podcast, Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. You can follow that on YouTube and Instagram, Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. And like you said, you can follow me on X at Mr. Fourth and Long. I'm there. I communicate. Buckle up. It's a wild ride whenever you're rolling with Jay Holley.
All right. Sounds really good. From selling cell phones and security guard to all this stuff. Unbelievable. And I also want to thank again our sponsor before I take off, my bookie. Don't forget, they'll double your first deposit up to $1,000. Again, look for the link and the promo code in the show description. Can't wait for Monday night. We only get this once every 4 years. Jesse, I'm just excited that these two teams get to hook it up, and hopefully there's going to be no fist fights in the parking lot. We can get through that maybe this time around.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But let's hope the game is interesting and competitive, and that the Cowboys do something that surprises us all.
All right, brother. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.